This is Bibi for discussion number two. Question number one is what does the ALM suggest about why the same persuasive message can be highly effective for one person and completely ineffective for another? So I would reference the textbook, which is according to Dallard and Shin, 2012. Persuasive messages may be effective for some individuals because they have a higher levels of knowledge. They are able to process complex information, um, find the message personally relevant to them that makes them engage more highly engaged to the conversation. These factors increase their motivations and ability to engage in a deeper processing. So, in contrast, the same message may be ineffective for others who are less engaged. Maybe they're tired, distracted, their lack of ability to fully comprehend or understand the message. So, as a result, they are less likely to process the message carefully. Um, that could reduce the persuasive impact. So, the elaboration likelihood model explains that persuasive messages are effective not just because what is being said, but how people process the message and how they evaluate the message carefully. So people are persuaded in two different ways, which is the dual process, the ELM, suggested by ELM, which route they use to determine whether the message is effective or not effective. So first is the central route, which is deep thinking. People carefully evaluate the message. When they are motivated, they really care about the topic. They feel more engaged about evaluating what the message uh, is about. So they have the ability to understand. Um, what matters to this audience are what is this if there is a strong arguments, uh, strong evidence, if it's logically, um, then it creates more lasting attitude change, which means they're more likely to be persuaded and their attitude is more likely to be modified. So the other route is peripheral route, which is surface level of thinking. So where people are rely on the quick cues instead of deep evaluating information. It is happens when they're not motivated, they are distracted, busy, they don't have enough time to engage, and their lack of knowledge. Um, what just matters to them is if your confidence, if you display attractiveness, your sounds a good talker, sounds eloquent, if you display likability, um, then they're more likely to show short-term attitude change, which means because they did not think or evaluate the information carefully, they get easily influenced. But later on, they may realize that they made a mistake or they realize that, oh, I changed my mind. I don't really agree to what they said, or I didn't really buy the product. I was just a really good looking. Um, the packaging is really good. So what makes me buy the product? So peripheral. So they carried away what that looks like, the attractiveness. Another example is during the interview, the interviewer and the job applicant. Interviewer may be influenced if the applicant sounds confident, it sounds friendly, they're really good at talking, then the interviewer is more likely to be persuaded by the interviewer or the interviewee or the job applicant. Um, a message is persuasive not only how it was crafted, but how the audience processed the message through the central route or peripheral route. It plays a significant role in the shaping the outcomes of the process. Same message can be effective or ineffective because people differ how they process the information. It's not just the message itself. Question number two is, how do you think the unimodel compares to the ELM as a theory of persuasion? Would the divergent theoretical assumptions influence how you craft persuasive messages? Why or why not? So, using the ELM or dual process theory, they says that people process messages through the two qualitatively different routes, which is the central routes and peripheral routes. Um, you would tailor your message or craft your message strategically based on the motivation and the ability of your audience. So here we have two audiences. Audience one, which is highly involved in the message. She's a nursing student. They care about health, has a background knowledge of health, and is motivated to engage the message. So, what's the message base is to provide strong arguments, include data, risk statistics, mechanisms of immunity, and use the logical structure and evidence. Here's the message is clinical trials show uh, the flu vaccines reduces hospitalization by 61% among adults aged 18 to 49 years old. Vaccinations also protects vulnerable patients by reducing transmission in clinical settings. So why this works in ALM logic? So high involvement audience look at arguments, strong evidence, and lasting attitude change. So strong arguments can more likely persuade your audience. So audience number two is a low involvement, a busy person, a tell guest. They don't really care much about the health information and they have a very limited time to engage. So the message, this ALM message, it use simple cues, highlight the convenience, social norms, trusted sources, emotional appeal. Example of the message. Your coworkers are getting vaccinated today. It only takes 5 minutes and keeps you healthy all season. So why this works for ELM? For logic, low involvement audience rely on cues and ignore the arguments. Compared to unimodal, a single process theory that says that there is only one type of processing, which is all informations is just one evidence. The differences come from amount of thinking and not the kind of thinking. So the message design does not change based on involvement. Unimodal based message for both audiences. So you would present any information, statistics, social norms, expert endorsements as evidence supporting the conclusions. So you don't really give your audience an options on how to process or evaluate your messaging. So example is getting the flu shot protects you and those around you. Doctors recommend it, and it reduces your chance of getting sick. So arguments and cues are not different categories. They're all just pieces of evidence that people use to reason towards a conclusion. So if you choose ELM, yes, you would follow the ELM, then you would tailor messages based on your audience involvement, motivation, ability, and context. So that can lead to more effective targeted communication and target audience. So if you follow that uni model, you would just grab your message in a general way, general message, using whatever information you think counts as evidence. So you are not being specific to your audience. Um, Both theories explain persuasion. ELM leads to audience-based adaptation, whereas the unimodel leads to integrated message construction. So is more focused on the audience adaptation, which is their concerns more on how their audience would receive or process the message. In contrast to in contrast to uni model, which is just grab all your message in one process. Question number two is Park et al. 2024, which is the authors found that attractiveness outperform expertise in predicting attitudes for both high and low involvement. So how might the ELM explain the apparent dominance of peripheral cues over central cues? Collaboration likelihood model can explain the dominance of attractiveness over expertise by recognizing that individuals do not always engage in a rational way. So central processing, even though in high involvement context, uh, in this article. So instead, people often rely on peripheral cues such as attractiveness because these cues are easier to process and can serve as a heuristic of credibility and trustworthiness. Individuals may also be more influenced by visual appeal, particularly when they lack motivation, less effort to evaluate complex information. For example, in romantic relationships, so individuals may be initially drawn to physical based on the physical attractiveness rather than the deeper qualities or values. Even when long-term relationships success depends on more substantive factors, attractiveness can strongly shape first impression and influence the individual's decision. So in persuasion context, people may favor attractive sources over more qualified individuals because attractiveness creates a positive bias even when it is not logical relevant. So this demonstrates in how peripheral cues can sometimes override more rational evaluations, leading to the observed findings. So ELM can still explain this, where people don't always process deeply, even though in a high involvement situation. So even when the topic is as high as important, people may feel overwhelmed, pressure, lack of knowledge. So they rely on shortcuts like attractiveness. Attractiveness can function as a heuristic, as can signal credibility, trustworthiness, and likability. So people may think that if they look good, they look presentable, and they are more competent. So in this part at all, involvement is the switch that determines which route people would use to process the information. Virtual influencer doesn't just look good, their appearance, that also becomes part of the message itself. So attractiveness bias how people process information. shape the perceptions of message quality and influence both low and high involvement in audience. So some takeaway, ELM doesn't say that the central processing always happens. Um, it says that it depends on the motivation and the ability, which are often lower than we assume. And that's all. Thank you for listening.